Hey everybody, this is Mr. Moffman coming at you with another APUSH video. This is another video taking a look at topic 8.14, Society in Transition. And in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at some of the mid to late 70s political issues going on with the Ford presidency, the election of 76, and the Carter White House. So, when we were last here, we were talking about the resignation of Richard Nixon in disgrace following the Watergate scandal. Now, when Gerald Ford becomes president, you got to remember his background. Gerald Ford is not some nobody off the street. Gerald Ford, actually, interesting story. Gerald Ford was actually first nationally known as a big-time college football star at the University of Michigan. But in the world of politics, he was a longtime congressman representing a district in the state of Michigan. He was on the Warren Commission that investigated the assassination of JFK. But of course, more recently he had become Nixon's vice president following the resignation of Spiro Agnew, and now following the resignation of Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford was now president. Now, Ford, unlike Nixon, had always had a pretty favorable, reputation in Washington. As a nice guy, a good guy, someone that, tried to find the middle ground, even though he's more to the right politically than to the left. And at a time where, we had seen just this dramatic erosion in the faith in government because of the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal, there was some hope that Ford would be able to kind of right the ship and kind of bring about some more credibility for the White House in many respects. But about a month into his administration, Ford's going to make a very, very, very significant announcement that is, in many respects, going to define the rest of his time as president. And some will say, basically submarined it before it even had a chance to really get off the ground. And that will be Ford's controversial decision to pardon his predecessor, Richard Nixon, for any possible crimes that he may have committed as President of the United States. So this is a singular blanket pardon. And this is important because some of you might think, well, what do you mean, Nixon had already resigned? What's the problem? Well, you got to remember that just because Nixon resigned, all of that meant is that he was no longer president. A lot of the things that he was looking at potentially were federal criminal charges regarding, issues like, basically fraud in the election of 1972. So Nixon was facing very, very likely criminal charges and, to be honest, a very strong likelihood of being convicted of those charges. And so Ford was of the mindset that, America had already been through now by this point, by the fall of 1974, basically 2 full years of the Watergate scandal. And that was coming off of, years of the Vietnam War. And there was just kind of a sense that, if he didn't pardon Nixon, there would be another 1 to 2 plus more years dealing with the criminal proceedings and a trial for Richard Nixon. And he felt that the nation just could not heal, it could not move on until Watergate and the Nixon administration had a real definitive end, and that pardon would do that. Now, that being said, we will see Ford's popularity sink like a rock amongst most Americans because there was a sense now that since Nixon got the pardon, that he had basically gotten away with what he had been doing as president. Some even believed in more of a conspiracy theory kind of a mindset that maybe, Nixon had set this whole thing up with Ford becoming VP in the first place to have this scenario play out if necessary. I don't know if I really believe that, but, there was a sense, though, that, Ford's, pretty squeaky clean image had now really been tarnished by this decision. But nonetheless, it happened, and now Ford's going to moving on. Now, of course, we mostly think of the Ford presidency as a time of great economic struggle. We've talked previously about the dual problems of high unemployment and high inflation, otherwise known as stagflation. We talked about Ford's failed attempt at, the Whip Inflation Now program. We also, of course, talked about on the foreign policy front, issues with South Vietnam officially falling to communism, the Mayaguez incident. You saw the Helsinki Accords. We talked previously about the CIA being investigated. Probably the highlight for the Ford administration is going to be the Bicentennial, which will take place in 1976. This is going to be a pretty major event throughout the summer of that year, and it will serve as a bit of a distraction during what's going to be kind of a tough time. I mean, America in the mid-70s is going to be struggling economically. It's going to be feeling like it had certainly lost its dominance on the global stage. Americans didn't have faith in government anymore. We had seen a massive cultural shift take place that's going to have a number of side effects. And so there was just kind of a sense that America had kind of lost its way as we're going through the mid-70s. And this did not bode well for Gerald Ford as he was, running for re-election in 76, especially since he was going to face a major challenge in former California Governor Ronald Reagan. Now, once again, if you are the incumbent president and somebody challenges you from the inside, that's a bad sign. It shows that you're divided. It shows you're not a very popular president. And yeah, this is not good for Ford. Yes, Ford does barely survive and hold on and get the nomination. It certainly legitimizes Reagan as a future candidate once again for president in the 1980s. And Ford is pretty wounded pretty badly from this primary fight. Going up against Ford is going to be former Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter, who is going to be a real Washington outsider. He had never served in the federal government at all, and he's going to use that to his advantage. He's going to be saying that, hey, I can come to D.C. fresh from Georgia, no connections to D.C., no connections to Watergate, no connections to Vietnam, and so there's a sense that, he can kind of start over. And, the fact that he is going to be a born-again Christian is going to be appealing to many people of faith. Southerners are going to temporarily kind of stop the transitioning from the Democrats to the Republicans because Carter is a Southern boy, and you didn't see too many Southerners become president, since the Civil War. So there was that support there. So Carter's got a lot of good things going for him. And Ford did not. Now, that being said, though, what started out as a seemingly insurmountable lead for Carter is slowly eroded as we go through the summer of 1976. But it's not going to be enough come fall to overcome that deficit and change what was expected to be the result in the first place. And that is going to be a Carter victory in 1976. But as you can see here in the Electoral College results, it's going to be pretty close. It's going to be pretty darn competitive on election night. And you can see here, as I was talking about, Carter's going to be able to hold the South for the most part, which had kind of been, moving more towards Republican in recent years, and was able to cobble together enough support in the Northeast to be able to hold off Ford. So, with Carter now winning this election, America is now optimistic for, a new start, a new era, a sense of, okay, we can put the past behind us. We can put Vietnam and Watergate and all of that behind us and move forward. And Carter really wanted to make a point to do that. And one of Carter's, goals as president is to send a message that he's one of the American people. That, he's not some imperial president, that Nixon kind of had that sense of, that he was kind of above the American people. Carter wanted to show that, yeah, he was an American. He came from a peanut farm, in Plains, Georgia, and he just, wanted to, kind of show that he was unpretentious. And you even saw that on Inauguration Day when the Carters are going to get out of their limo. And as you can imagine, absolutely scare the Secret Service to death. And he and his wife will walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, waving to the attendees, sending the message that, hey, I walk the same ground that you walk on. I am one of you. One of the things that helped Carter in the 76 campaign was on the campaign trail telling the American people repeatedly that he will never lie to them, that he will never lie to the American people. And that was important at that time, where we felt that all the government did was lie to us. So there was the sense that, hey, Carter is going to be kind of turning the ship around. But it's not going to be that true. Now, that being said, Carter's not going to be knocked for being a liar. He's not going to be knocked for being corrupt or anything like that. But he is going to have some shortcomings. Many will criticize his leadership style as being too much of a micromanager. You got to remember, as president, you are technically the head of the entire federal bureaucracy, and generally, the best leaders are those that have big ideas and have a strong work ethic, but they don't try to control every little detail. They try to hire people as cabinet members or White House advisors, people like that on staff that can do the actual work, with the president just kind of being an overseer to some degree and the big picture person and the spokesperson for those policies. But Carter was, known for, having that micromanaging style. I mean, to give you an example, Carter actually daily filled out the White House tennis court schedule to give you a sense of how much of a micromanager this guy was. And Carter was kind of hoping that, that his good efforts, that his sense of being, trying to do what he thought was morally right, be it calling out the Soviets on human rights, boycotting the 80 Olympics over the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, a sense of, hey, we're going to bring the Egyptians and the Israelis together in the name of peace in the Middle East. And, there was a sense of, that he wanted to send the message that, that he was working hard, he was trying to put American morals first, but it wasn't working. The economy was still in decline, and now interest rates are really going up. You are seeing America seemingly, kind of, at its low point of the decade with the Iran hostage crisis going on. The idea that, we can be brought to our knees by, a developing country in the Middle East. And to try to right the ship again, Carter's going to deliver a speech to the American people in the fall of 1979 that critics will call the Malay Speech. And basically, this is Carter being honest. Carter's going to be somebody that says, hey, I'm going to never lie to you. And he, tries to, kind of show what he's thinking in this speech. And in this speech, he tries to tap into why there's a sense of a malaise in America, a sense that we had lost our way. There was a sense that, we had lost our mojo, that maybe we weren't as exceptional as we thought we were, and whatnot. And for Carter, he's going to kind of diagnose the problem, or the cause for the problem, as America going through a moral and spiritual crisis. That, we needed to kind of get our values squared away, that we needed to be a more ethical society, a more giving society, a society that is going to be more honest and open. And Carter, from his perspective, the idea being is, I'm going to lay it out on the line. Let's work together on solving this issue. Let's diagnose it accurately. But the American public is going to take it a very different way. The American public is going to kind of see it as Carter pointing to the American people themselves, saying, hey, you're the problem, America, not the government. It's the people that are the problem. The people need to get their act together so that the government can do its job better. Americans didn't want to hear that. The idea in a democracy is that if things are going poorly, it's not the people's fault. It's the people's representatives that are actually making the decisions, that it's their fault. And so this is really going to hurt Carter's popularity. And so we see as we go through his presidency, it's just a pretty swift decline over those 4 years, which is only going to make it easier for what was already now the burgeoning conservative movement to be able to strike politically, and they will in a major way in the 1980 election. So when we look at the 70s politically, there's some occasional highlights, but when we look at Nixon, Ford, and Carter, we kind of see this as a low decade in American history politically, the 1970s for sure. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.